Dick, let's talk a little bit about the key players involved in the design and development of the Buccaneer. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship and friendship with Harry Sindel?
Oh, yeah. Harry and I have a 50th golden anniversary this year. I met Harry when we were both, I'm not sure whether we were teenagers or not, but very young at the Thistle National Championships in St. Michael's, Maryland. And we had a knockdown drag-out the first race, finishing a half a mile ahead of the third boat, heavy winds. And as I recall, we finished, overlapped even at the finish. And Harry and I have remained friends all since that time. Our careers were kind of parallel. He was a boat builder, I was a boat builder. He was an enthusiastic competitor in the Thistle class, so was I. And later on, as I formerly mentioned, we did the Jet 14 as licensed to him, and I made sales for his company. And so it's been a long and pleasant and very friendly relationship. I have the highest regard for Harry as a boat builder, and in particular a helmsman. Many people may not know that he was our Olympic representative at Naples in the Flying Dutchman.
Oh my gosh, that's quite remarkable. When and how did you meet Rod McAlpine Downey?
Well, in my own company, I was building monohull sailboats, and a number of other people were doing the same, and companies that were substantially larger than mine. So I was kind of a little fish in a big pool. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to be a big fish in a little pool? What would fit that description? I read in a British publication about a young Scot who had designed a catamaran called Ty Mark IV and had blown the competition away in the European one-of-a-kind. So I dropped a note to him and said, would you consider licensing a U.S. manufacturer? And that's where it began. I subsequently met him, a year later, I suppose, in Long Island when he came over and won the first International Catamaran Challenge. And we hit it off very well at that point, and made a handshake agreement essentially at that time to be partners in boat design. I was a little dismayed that his major at Eton, a King's Scholar I might add, was in biology. He seriously considered a career as a concert violist, and he saw a shearwater catamaran and thought, hell, I can do better than that. And that was Ty Mark IV.
Okay. Subsequent to that, you were involved with the design of a shark catamaran with Rod?
This was at that time in Long Island when I met him is the time we decided that we should collaborate on the shark catamaran.
Okay. And during the tour of the shark catamaran and demonstrating the boat is when you really kind of galvanized your friendship?
Well, we seemed to hit it off rather well right off the bat, but when we did the shark catamaran prototype, we did a 3-month barnstormer from Montreal, Canada, all the way to El Paso, Texas, racing every day somewhere. And that was really the beginning, and then slept in the back end of a station wagon because didn't have enough money to rent a motel room. And that was really the beginning of our planning for how we were going to go about this partnership.
Over the years, what were some of the other boats that you designed with Rod?
We designed a range of dinghies for over a period of years for Chrysler Corporation, a range of dinghies for MFG, the company to whom I subsequently sold my business. And we had licensee arrangements with builders in other countries, in some instances the same boats that were being built in the U.S., England and Germany, Italy, Japan. And we like to say Brazil. We did have a licensee there who probably produced 3 boats, maybe.
Over a period of time from the early 60s till Rod's untimely death in 1986, approximately how many different designs did you and Rod design and some of the production numbers of those boats?
Well, we put somewhere around between 75 and 80 boats into commercial production. A relative handful of one-offs like the world speed record holder crossbow and an 80-foot British Airways sponsored catamaran for Robin Knox Johnson, but there's perhaps 250,000 to 250,000 boats built to our designs.
Wow, that's a tremendous number. Let's now turn to the design work for Chrysler. I'm curious as to what your initial connection with Chrysler was and why they sought you two out as designers for them.
Well, at the time, the current marketing manager or director of Chrysler Marine had previously been employed in another company. A project that he was promoting was falling on its head, a sailboat. And I was a vendor to that company. And he asked if I could sort it out, perhaps. And it was a fairly simple job. I don't know why the original designer didn't do it or couldn't. And he had then went to Chrysler Marine. He rang me one day, and we were quite good friends. He rang me one day and he said, you know, Chrysler's Lone Star 13 and Lone Star 16 aren't doing very well in this exploding marketplace of sailboats. What do you think we should do? And I said, well, I suggest you get all those molds in one spot and torch them. I said, I think it's unreasonable for Chrysler to foist off such junk on an unsuspecting public.
So you didn't really think very much of the boats that they were building at that time?
Bloody awful. The 13-footer was out of balance so badly when you heeled over, it sunk by the stern and water ran right straight in the cockpit.
What other boats that they worked on prior to that, Chrysler?
None at all. They had bought Lone Star Boat Company.
Okay.
And these two boats were Lone Star boats, and that they continued to produce them.
That was their entire product line at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, why was it that Chrysler chose you and Rod to design a sailboat for them, or consider a design?
After my conversation with Bill, the marketing director, a month or 6 weeks later, he rang and said, well, come on up to Detroit and meet our product planning committee and put your money where your mouth is. And so this was the group of people who set the parameters of design for products that they were considering producing in their boat plant in Plano, Florida.
So they had an idea.
Texas.
Plano, Texas. They had an idea of the type of boat that they wanted designed, and I'm interested to know what Chrysler had in mind as a concept for a boat at this point.
About the only thing they knew was about how long they wanted it. They set down specific parameters for us to consider. Wanted it typical of non-sailors. They wanted to hold 4 to 5 people, and they didn't want it to be tippy, but they wanted it stable, like a concrete highway. Well, you know, that obviously, and they wanted it as fast as whatever sailboat was reputed to be a fast sailboat. Well, you know, those parameters are not possible in one boat. When we were returning, when Rod and I were returning from this meeting, he was disconsolate. Said, well, what can we do? And I said, you know, those people in that product planning committee don't know the pointy end from the square end. Let's just do what we think they should have, and they won't know the difference. And so that's exactly what we did. And we had a vested interest in doing that, of course, because we produced the design and a prototype from which molds could be taken.
At your expense.
At our expense. And this was the attraction to them, of course. The first expense they had was the molds taken off of a boat.
Dick, can you discuss the evolution that you and Rod went through in altering the design parameters that Chrysler come up with to fit something that you felt would be a saleable product? Yeah,
I was more familiar with the American market than Rod, and I believed it should be a sit-in, not a sit-on boat. Thinly disguised as a comfortable family sailboat by that feature in particular, but competitive to boats like the Thistle in terms of performance. And that was pretty simple and basic. A simple rig, you know, 3-shroud rig, no spreaders on the mast, a bit of a high aspect ratio main to make it efficient, and a large overlapper on the jib, and a spinnaker launching tube to be added subsequently either as an option or standard.
Like the Flying Dutchman would have.
Like the Flying Dutchman had, yeah.
What were some of the boats that influenced your design?
Well, three boats are really have always impressed me. The 10 square meter canoe, and I think the world's fastest sailboat, foot for foot. And the 505, which is without any question one of the marvelous designs, considering the specifications or the design parameters that had to be met. A superior boat. And the Thistle, which I raced for years, we sort of looked at those three and said, what's wrong with them? What could be improved on those? And essentially wrapped the Buccaneer around that thought process.